Alright, and we are live. There's little Connie. I don't think this part got recorded last time because I had no sound. Uh, this is the home space, and it's like your room in Little Big Planet where you can design it however you want, but it really serves no function whatsoever. Good job, Connie. Alright, well, let's get into some stuff. And so I did some work off camera, um, and switch from my DS4 to the moves. Alright, so we've got our alleyway, we've got Gladys's house, added a door, and this door is interactive, so it's a pre-created one, and if you interact with it, it will take you to a next level. And so we'll go inside Gladys's house when we talk to her. Add a little grass. We'll put some more details in here. But here's where we are. And redid the buildings. They didn't quite like the way they looked. Added some walls so people can't fall off the edge of the map. And put this alleyway in here, which is where our exit will be when we go to move to another level. So, a little bit of progress made. I'm just going to exit out here. Oop. Can't quite get that. There we go. And back up. One of the other things we did, I guess, was made a title screen. And we also created the basis for the full game. So this is how, when you make things in Dreams that are more than one level, this is how you stitch them together. So you've got the genealogy that tells you what parts are in it, and the title screen in the Goon game. Let me go back, and we'll edit it just a bit. So you have what's basically a timeline, and all of the things that you put in here. You can move them around, that type of a thing, and it shows all of the connections between one place and another. So when you go to start the game, then it will take you to the title screen, and the title screen has 3 exits. So our first one will take us to our crime scene. Now this is just kind of a placeholder. There will be a cutscene in between here, so you start the game, get a cutscene, and then you get to go to the crime scene. This will be a credits thing, so everyone that contributed ideas or voice acting or anything will have a thing, and then an exit, which we actually can take this and draw a connection back to the start. So that way, if someone wants to exit from the title screen, it will just take them back out of the game. So we can back out of that, and we'll save this version back to our system. And we're done. Great. And now we'll actually show off the title screen. And unfortunately, the splash page, I guess you'd call it, looks a bit like a titty, but it's really not. So let's go and edit and show all of the stuff that got done. And this is how a scene will look when you create it. Now obviously, when you're playing it, it doesn't look anything like this. You can't see anything that's going on here. And we have a microchip, a camera, a light, some effects, and also some rain. So let's take a look at this microchip. When you do logic, this is the easy way to do it. A microchip is basically what you're going to slap all of your different logic pieces on. Zoom in a little bit. And so here we have a controller sensor, camera, a piece of music that I made, selector switch, and then a whole bunch of text displayers that have our stuff on them, and you can see them kind of light up when I move over with the move controller. These are AND gates. So in order for an AND gate to function, both parameters have to be active. And then these are the doorways. So they will take us out. From the start screen, if this is active, you're holding and you press X to the AND, then it will take you to the doorway, which is going to be the cutscene. This takes you to the credits, and that takes you out of the game entirely. Go in and take a look at some of these details. And so this is the controller sensor, and as you can see, it has tons of different things you can do with it. The buttons, what they do, you can set individual controls.
Hey, just got here. Did I miss anything?
No, I showed off a little bit of our level. I did a little more work, but it's still pretty rough. I'm showing off the title screen that I made, and how I'll show you how everything works, and then we'll actually show it off in real time. We'll play it, quote unquote. The controller sensor with all of the buttons, and you can set these to do different things, like the strength of the signal. If it's just a press, what you want it to activate further on down the chain. Sticks. There's a tilt sensor. There's all kinds of stuff. How the camera works when you activate it. And this one's really important. So possession mode. What happens when the game detects a controller? Now we have what's called forced possession on here, which means that unlike on the home screen or whatever, the imp doesn't appear and then you click on anything. So once it detects that there's a controller active, then that's the only thing that goes on in the screen. And then you can give it a visual. We have ours hidden because we don't want to see the imp. We just want to have the screen. You can have a pointer. You can put a tag for docking. Where you want that imp to go.
Just noticed your cursor thingy is a lion or cat.
Yep, he looks like a little. I think he looks like a little leopard. He does. You can find ones with manes, and your imp you can actually customize, and you get level up imps. So when you do things in the game, it's part of the leveling up system. You can get new imps, and I unlocked that guy not long ago, and I wanted the kitty, so I got a kitty. And then really important, some of the output stuff. So what happens when when the controller is possessed or the player ownership, you can tag. Is it in the controller sensor? For multiplayer games. So you can have, 4 players at a time. There it is. Which, when player 1 is active, what it sets up, and this is how you do your logic. So you can figure it out if you know what you're doing. It's a lot easier. For me, it's a lot of bumbling around. This took me quite a while. I watched some tutorials, and things they were doing didn't exactly work the way I wanted them to, so I still had to tinker until I got what I wanted. So the selector switch. Ooh, I don't want a wire. And so it's just inputs, and you can have up to that many. So a selector can do a lot of things for you. And then it just moves it to the next one. So the way that we have it set up here is that when someone moves up and down on the D-pad, then it will send a signal to do the next thing. So start our our options here, and then it will also show the X button. And one of the cool things you can do with the text
Looks more
displayer.
human resource machine than Ziptronics.
Seriously, that's why whenever everyone suggests, "Hey, why don't you do this?" and it's like, "Well, I might be able to do that, but keep in mind that this isn't all that complicated as far as logic goes." So you'll see some of the boards that people set up, and they're just insane. And I'll be honest, I'm not that smart, so we have troubles with it. And then here's a text displayer, and it will tell you where your text is. So let's look into this menu. So you have your place where you could put your actual text. And here we're using a special character. Using sort of like BB code, you can get it to display buttons. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to, press X or press square. You don't have to type it out. You can just put the carets in the code word and it'll output the signal.
I know the basics of logic, but just the ifs and pans and pens and ors and ands and so forth.
Right, and like I know what an AND gate does. There's OR gates. There's what they call the XOR gate. I'm not sure how those work. I can show off some of the gadgets to give you an idea of all the stuff you can do. And then with a text box, so you have the choice of just having the text float, like we have here, and you could also add like a text box around it and a border. So, you can make it look like cartoon type words or anything like that. You can kind of change like the direction of where the little tail from the text box comes out and how you set your text alignment. And then these settings. So, in scene makes it do this. It becomes like a physical object that you can manipulate. You could move it up or down or tilt it, which I have done. And when we get into the camera, you can see how it works. And then, what happens
There's
when
a
the
little
camera
film grain
outputs.
at the top of the screen.
Yes. So this is a special effect that I added, and I'll show that off too. We have a little bit of film grain going on. Right now it's static, but you can see the rain, so you can animate rain. And for us, so when the controller, in this case, when the controller is detected, you don't have to do anything. Then the title screen will, the game title, here's our placeholder, will appear. And this is your sun and sky. And so here you can set like the color of your sun, how bright it is, the angle. We've got it cranked way down because it's supposed to be dark and atmospheric. But you can do all kinds of things with the weather, basically. Change the background. So this is the sky fleck, your background, and you can change what type you want. So it looks different and how it animates. How bright it is. So if you wanted to turn it way up. Again, we've got ours down pretty low because it's supposed to be dark and scary. Saturation, if you're using colors, we've got our saturation turned way down. If we turn it up a little bit, you can kind of see how much of that you want. And then fog settings, the definition of the horizon, how high or low you want that to be. And then the closeness of the fog. We have our universal grade and effect settings here. So
Spooky.
it's very spoopy. How bright it is. Again, we've got that turned way down, but we could turn it up if we wanted. Contrast. Basically color settings. If you want to tint your shadows, you can do highlights, midlights, lowlights, um, effects. So you can do things like, and this is what some of what I've done. So you can set a vignette where the edges get dark.
Oh, I
Bloom.
posted in the thread that we're live.
Oh, good. I made a bit of an early post and then put up a highlight video. So if people don't have the time to watch the stream, there's still some progress to be made. So here's our film grain. We've got that going on. You can put motion blur, camera movement, and then pin cushion, which is like a fisheye effect. And then for hues, since our color's so down, we're not going to make much use of this here. And effects. So you can do all kinds of strange things. You can make it look like an 8-bit game. Scan lines. So if you want that, security cam look. Posterize, which is the kind of strange color effects, glitch effects, and we have some on. And they don't actually show in the camera when we turn it on because they're only around the edge of the screen. But you can set these to go like completely crazy. So you can have your whole screen kind of wigging out like bad TV, if that's what you want to do. Which is pretty neat, because again, it's quite easy. There's the screen jiggling like a TV that's slightly out of antenna range. Put that back so we just
Sounds like those options would work well for atmospheric horror games.
Absolutely. Or, I mean, if you've got just cutscenes, you see people do a lot with the security camera type thing, or, zooming into a TV or something along those lines. You can do a lot of really cool stuff, and it's the greatest thing about this game is it's all made. I don't know, how much time it took them to put this all together, but they announced it in 2014 and they didn't really have a demo until 2018, so it took them a long time to get all this stuff to work as easily as it does. It does take a little fudging around and getting used to, but it's pretty amazing what you can do with all of this stuff. You're like, hey, I made a working title screen that the buttons work, and it's got lights, and it's got music, and a camera. No, this is what they call early release. So they did a beta at the end of 2018 in Europe and in January of this year in the US. And this is actually like an early release version, so it's paid $30. It's not full featured, but it has more features than the beta. And when they do release the full game, if you get early access.
Thanks for correcting me.
That's okay. If you buy the early access, then when the full game releases, you don't have to pay another $30. It's just yours. And then we've also got our lamp here, our light. So we'll open that back up so we can kind of see. And then the camera only shows up when the microchip's open since it's attached here.
And people are still probably gonna mod it a little.
Probably not gonna mod it because it's PlayStation exclusive and it's really difficult to mod console games. So I don't know that there'll be like any sort of community tweaking of the actual code or effects. That might be something they open up though, since everything else goes on. Changeable. And we're gonna zoom into our camera and you can set your you can basically go inside the camera and see what it's seeing. So you can, let me switch to the DS4 because the controls are slightly better. There's only a few things that the DS4 is better for, but where it is better, it's quite a bit better. So you can make sure that's working. So you can set like your field of vision, tilt it, look around. For some reason my DS4 is not working. But oh well. So we're gonna zoom out here. And we're actually gonna go into play mode. and see what
So
it would
this is
look
gonna
like.
be an old PS1 horror game camera with fixed angles, a la Resident Evil 1?
No, so this is going to be just for the title screen. Now, when we're playing Samantha, she has her own camera. We can set it first person, we can set it third person. But in scenes, it's sort of like if you're shooting a movie or something, you know, you're going to have a camera looking at the main actor, and you may have a camera looking at the dog or whatever it is that you're doing in your scene. And each one of those things can have their own camera, so you can switch between them. You can make transitions with the camera. Actually, let's open the menu here. So you can make transitions, and you can set like the time for them, the angle. You can do tons of things with the camera. So if you want like a cut or a wipe, or you know, like for it to jag down and then go back up, you can make a really smooth transition. And then the scale for it. So if it's attached, you can actually attach a different camera to your puppet for use only at certain times. So there's the one that's attached to them when they're just walking around, but you could also put another camera maybe attached above their head or something that activates when you get to a trigger zone, and then all of a sudden it turns into this cinematic thing so that, you know, it focuses the player's attention where you want it. And it's all pretty cool stuff. So let's back out our camera. And now the music here, I've got it colored red. This is music that I made. It wasn't made for this, but it is a piece that I made. And so since it was available, I just threw it on here, but it pretty much well fits the mood. So we're going to go in, and this would be what it would be like if you had just started up the game. So as you can see, by using the D-pad, we can choose our options. And we can see our rain coming down.
Eerie.
And the effect that I showed off when we were making the crime scene. So it's got that kind of boil effect where it looks like rain. And then there's actual rain. And every now and then you'll see lightning go off. That's something that someone else made. Because that's a lot of animation I didn't want to deal with. But so we can move our title, like, you know, we can move it down a little bit. I wanted it in the dark so it would kind of glow, and then the spotlight of what we can do.
Almost looks like there's water on the camera.
Mm-hmm. And that's just, you know, from a couple of boxes and things slapped together. So what you can, I mean, one of these, I think for one stream, it might be fun to just go dream surfing and show off some of the crazy shit that people have made, because, you know, it's amazing. There really isn't a limit as far as I can tell to what you can do. It's just a matter of how much time you're going to put into it. And I'm just letting the music piece. It's a loop. It's about 45 seconds to a minute long. So you can kind of hear what it sounds like. Now I've got one of these things.
I heard something about there being a limited number of variables allowed on the Dreams Reddit.
Well, in any given scene, we'll call it, there is a limit to how much memory you can load into a scene. But if you hit your thermo, we talked about that a little bit on the last stream, so if your thermo's full and you can't cram anything more into a scene that you've got, just add a transition with a doorway, and it doesn't have to be an actual physical doorway. You can just program one for someone to walk through, you know, a gate or something like that, and it will load an entire new level, and you have a zero thermo that you can add more stuff to. So it's pretty seamless as far as the transitions and things like that go. And this I've fixed up. So if you were, playing the game and you hit it, it would say, oh, you want to leave, um, but we don't want to do that, so.
I see. I was asking about how to do skill trees for an RPG.
That's something I haven't gotten too far into, but
On that Reddit.
on the Reddit, I don't read Reddit, unfortunately. Um, I have seen a couple of tutorial videos about those things, making skill trees. And again, I suppose the limit would be how much thermo you had available. Some things you can make persist, so like if you did something with, and we'll do this too, because of the way our game will work, you can make inventory items persistent throughout the game world. So there's just a toggle you turn on, and when we go from the crime scene to, wherever we go next, if we found clues, those will come with us. So it's not like, oh, I found 5 clues in the first area and I went to the second area and now I don't have any. That's something that's not difficult at all to do. You need a variable counter and a variable modifier and some other things, but we'll get there eventually. So we have spoopy music, we have rain, we have atmosphere. And that's how it looks for now. I think what I'll do in our game is that I will, kind of turn it down with this black and white and have that the overarching thing. But anytime we have like for our body, I want to leave that in as much color as possible.
It's a pretty title screen.
Well, good. I'm glad you like it. If anyone has suggestions, I am open. Go ahead and exit out of this. I don't know what I changed, but we'll save it just to be sure.
But let's move on to the actual game.
Alright, so back, and then and edit. So I made some progress. Move me over there. There we go. Got a couple of brick walls so we don't fall off our map. I was explaining a little bit earlier. We've added a doorway, and this is an actual level doorway, so when you interact with it, it will take you to a new scene, so we can go inside Gladys's house and question her. Got some garagey looking things, small buildings, and haven't put any weather effects or anything in here. I like to model with as much light as possible. And then add everything afterwards, because it's kind of hard to model in the dark. You can turn those off, but usually wait till they're all done.
Sounds like it would be kinda easy to accidentally end up with the TARDIS situation of buildings being bigger on the inside than outside.
That's kind of the neat thing about it, though, is that, intentionally or unintentionally, you could make a small building to walk into, and inside it's a palace, either as a surrealist or like a gag joke. That would be funny, too. Get in a phone booth and it's, the Grand Palace Hall. Oh, shoot. Let's go in our puppet and do a little work. Now, this isn't the actual puppet that we'll be using. I got to sculpt that one some more, but let's go in and tweak. So here's some of the puppet's logic and controls. And as you can see, they're pretty complicated. So you've got your walk speed and your run speed. Now, in a game like this, what I would probably do is I'm going to turn the run speed down It's okay if
I
they
mean,
move.
it would be cool for an area like Nowhere from the first Silent Hill, where reality has gone out to lunch and doors lead to random L.
And you could totally build, I mean, whatever you want. If you wanted to make 62 levels, I don't want to Zyborn clock it and still be doing
Locations.
this 4 years from now and not get it done. So we turned our run speed down a bit because we wanted to move faster
It cut
than the
off
slow
after the
walk.
first L in locations.
And then where's our jump? We don't want this guy to jump. Actually, let me go into him, and I'll show you why. Not selected. Let's do play mode. And I'll use the moves, even though they're a little wonky for it. And this is why we don't want our guy to jump. Oops. So we're going to fix that, because, in a game, if you can jump around like an asshole, you're going to jump around like an asshole. But we're going to make our guy not jump around. So we're going to lower his jump height. He doesn't need to jump a meter. He's not likely to get stuck on anything. I've been careful about checking the modeling to make sure that the walking AI and stuff is pretty good.
Cool,
so you
gonna
don't...
go for a second.
And then you can add a double jump and a minimum jump height. How the player is affected by gravity. And like how much control they have in the air. So floatiness. As steep of a angle that they can walk up. So anything greater than 30 degrees, they'll slide back down. And so you can set this really high, and yeah, they can basically just walk up buildings, which is also pretty fun. Sliding friction. And then one of the great things about the puppet controls here, so you can do some really silly things with them. How much they slide around, like cartoon run in place. They skate across the
Okay, that
ground.
wasn't as long as I thought it'd be.
Did you wash your hands? To match the floor angle. So like if the floor is tilted, they will tilt with it. How far apart the feet are. Just all of these little details. My favorite, T-Rex tread. So if you turn this on, their footfalls are like this big, huge, if they're really tall. If they're little, they won't show up. But if you made them like 8 feet tall, then they're going to have this big stompy foot. Length of their stride. I mean, like I said, you can just get into all sorts of crazy stuff. Bounciness. Their center of gravity. And so if you're using a motion sensor, how sensitive it is. And my favorite setting here, sassiness. We're going to turn that up a little bit, and then I'm going to show you what the puppet does when you've got sassiness on. So now they've got this hip sway. So you could make like a sultry, girly puppet who really swings her hips when she walks.
I wonder what that looks like at max.
Well, let's find out. Actually, let's let's make them just as ridiculous as possible. Boop. So, let's see. Let's get max sassy. Throw some more sway on there. Get some lumbering going on. We're going to actually turn stiffness down so they're kind of noodly. Get their arms going all crazy. flail, springiness. And then if you're building a puppet, or you're making tweaks to the puppet's body, so these show where the bones are, or the section of the body. The shoulder, belly, and this will highlight, you can see on the model, where that connector is. And here's where your following behaviors are. So, like, you can set, say, an NPC, if you have one, you could set it to look at your character when they come within a certain range. So, like, if they're having a conversation, instead of the NPC just, staring at the wall or off into space or whatever, you can actually have it look at the tagged player. Physical properties, are they visible? So, like I said, if you want to do your own sculpts on the body, you can make the base there invisible and just put random parts. So if you wanted to, say, model a skeleton, then you just sculpt the bones, slap it on there, turn that off, and all of a sudden you've got Skeleton Man. If it's movable, so again, you could make like an NPC or whatever that's not movable, collidable, the shape around the puppet for their collision area, and then these are the tags, so what they'll collide with. You can turn these things on or off. So if you had something that you wanted them to be able to walk through, that off and tag that object with whatever, and they'd be able to clip right through it. And then their own tags and labels, and the sound channels, so you can set individual sound channels for different effects and things like that. So now that
Can you affect the puppet's body shape?
Yes.
Make them pudgier or more muscular or curvier?
Well, so let's actually scope into our little puppet friend here. So now we're in Mr. Puppet. And you can do, where's our tools? Let's show off some of this. So you can take your old friend, the stretch tool, and you can give him a really long neck. If you pull the shoulders apart, it makes the chest bigger. So if you want, beef slab chest, you can have good old beef there. You can kind of move how they sit on it. And where you grab on the puppet will affect what part of it. So you can make great octopus arms. If you grab the bottom, then it'll affect the length of that upper area. If you grab the upper area, it affects the upper torso. You can give them a long middle body. Really, the only area that you don't want to mess too much with is the pelvis, because everything is based off of that. And if you stretch it too much, basically the connectors break. And I've seen footage of puppets that just sort of like disappear. The engine doesn't know what to do if that gets too out of whack, and so basically don't mess with this. You can maybe widen them a little bit, but beyond that, you don't want to make super tweaks to the pelvis because things will get broken. And you can make a lot of different character models basically by just, changing everything else. So they can have like a really squat body.
Darn it, I wanted to give my guy characters massive sausages.
Now you could do that with sculpting. Just don't mess with his little hip bones, because, then his legs may fall off, or he may end up with his foot stuck up his own ass, which is just not pleasant. You can make that, like I said, you can... Oh, there it goes. We might break it. Yep.
I kid.
So now that we've messed with the hips a little too much, you can see how it just doesn't know what to do with it. So if you'll make your legs longer or shorter, and again, you can see when you start to move things, they get a little bit
Well,
goofy.
alright, then, let's do those ridiculous walking animations we made.
Alright, well, we've also made him into a GIMP, so let's see how... yeah, that looks like someone was in a terrible accident. I apologize. Poor little guy. Let's play with him now and see what happens.
Is there an undo button?
Yes, absolutely. With the moves, it's really easy. You just tilt. Oh, that's great. I like that. Hi, I'm Noodle Man. Ooh. And now he still jumps,
Da
but...
ha 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 ha.
And that's how you make all sorts of crazy stuff. Pull a couple of, angles. Tweak
Gay
their
disaster
sassiness.
puppet.
Exactly. Oh, come on. I think this is like top tier Bethesda modeling right here. This is one of the fun things about the moves. Everybody limbo.
Alright, let's fix his club foot.
The easiest thing to do here, we'll go back to edit. And so if you want to undo anything with the moves, you just take your dominant hand and turn it to the left, and then just hit circle. And it will undo all the stuff you've done. Wait, I gotta reset it. And rewind. There we go. He's all better now. Oh wait, his neck's still way long. There we go. So, it's really hard to mess up. You just, it's the undo button. No harm, no foul. Wonder if he's still sassy. Yes, still noodly and sassy, but not broken. Perfect. Now you can rewind it to the state that you started in.
Be disaster puppet.
So many puppets have probably shot off into the ether because someone pulled their hip bones too far apart. Now I did put some grass in. Let's show off painting a little bit.
Error.
Let's see. Let's scope into our grass. So this is done in paint mode. And you can choose the shape of a fleck.
An error occurred. Please try again later. Playback ID ZEI6XDJG2 VIPMA-G6D.
Oh, dang it. Are you still getting audio?